Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the No DQ live recap of AEW Dynamite for March 4th, 2020. I will also be discussing the WWE NXT show. Thank you to everyone watching this live stream, whether it's live or on demand. I appreciate your viewership, and if you enjoy this video, please give it a like. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and tell a friend. Any word of mouth can go a very long way. All right, let's start off with AEW Dynamite, the fallout from the AEW Revolution pay-per-view on Saturday. We had highlights shown from the pay-per-view. We kicked off Dynamite with the brand new World Champion Jon Moxley. Crowd chanted, "You deserve it," of course, as the fans always do when a new champion is crowned. He talked about the letters AEW on the title belt. He did, in fact, call it a belt. He said that those letters represent professional wrestling, the sport that he loves. He said it never belonged to Chris Jericho. The belt belongs to the people that helped bring AEW into existence. And he said that him, along with the fans, they brought pro wrestling back, and he will crawl through hell to defend the championship. He knows it's not over, though, between him and the Inner Circle, and he dared them to come out and make a move. Right away, we had Jericho's music hit, Inner Circle not wasting any time, crowd singing along to Jericho's entrance theme, Judas. Jericho said he doesn't need a belt to be Le Champion. He said that the fans can shut their asses. He said he thinks the Moxley era sucks ass. Crowd started chanting, "You suck ass," at Jericho. He said that the Inner Circle, they are no longer going to be the nice, good-looking guys that they have been. Now they are a hit squad. Jericho said the entire AEW roster and Jon Moxley, they are all on notice. And he said that for the main event, which was scheduled to be Jericho and Sammy Guevara versus Moxley and Darby Allin, Jericho made a deal. If Moxley is able to walk away at the end of the show, Jericho will take 60 days off. He will take a 60-day leave of absence from AEW, which of course made people believe that this was going to be the show that would write off Chris Jericho, since Jericho has some Fozzy tour dates coming up next month. However, Jericho warned Moxley that he has a plan. He always has a plan. Moxley responded by saying that he is going to make Jericho look like a stupid son of a bitch. Really strong opening segment here to set up the main event. I like the 60-day stipulation. We'll talk about that more here in a few minutes. We had our first match of the evening, SCU teaming up with Colt Cabana. Cabana making his Dynamite in-ring debut up against the Dark Order 8-man tag team match. Cabana got a strong showing in this match. He got the hot tag, scored the pinfall victory with his finisher, which he calls the Chicago Skyline. After the match, Evil Uno was not happy that his team lost. He got on the mic and said, "When the Exalted One arrives, heads are going to roll." Good match here, and I don't really see an issue with Dark Order losing. Once the Exalted One comes in, that's when it's going to be make or break for the faction, in my opinion. All this hype about the Exalted One, if the Exalted One is somebody significant, Dark Order from that point on, I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with. So them losing here, No biggie. We have a few super chats here, which I will go ahead and read off real quick. Tony H with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Tony. He says, Dark Order should have had a tease tonight. Well, there was a tease that the Exalted One is coming very soon, and I would suspect that we will see the Dark Order anytime in the near future, but they're going to keep you guessing. Tom McCarthy with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Tom. He says, I am a no DQ maniac. I appreciate that very much, Tom. Thank you very much for supporting, and thank you for that super chat once again. We had a recap of several matches throughout the show. We had a recap of the AEW Tag Team title match at Revolution, and they showed several quotes from various reviewers. I was unfortunately not one of them, but one that was mentioned, the greatest wrestling reporter of all time, the most respected journalist in wrestling history, Dave Meltzer, who said it was perhaps the best tag team match that he has ever seen. And I do feel it was one of the best tag team matches in wrestling history. It's hard to think of a lot of better matches. It's definitely up there for sure. I'm guessing not a lot of people were thrilled about Meltzer being plugged on AEW Dynamite, praising a match where one of the moves in the match is named after him, but it is what it is. Next up, we had Big Swole versus Leva Bates, who is the librarian. Britt Baker was on commentary. She said that the guys in the production truck need to show her face more often because she equals ratings. Pretty quick match here. Big Swole won with her Dirty Dancing finisher. Next up, we had maybe the most interesting segment of the show. We had Cody come out to talk about his loss at the Revolution pay-per-view. He said he wants MJF to come out there and say to his face that MJF beat Cody fair and square. But instead of Cody getting MJF, we had Jake the Snake Roberts come out. Totally out of left field here. Nobody was expecting Jake Roberts to show up here on AEW Dynamite. Jake got in the ring. He talked about how he is tired of hearing Cody cry and bitch about losing a match. Jake said he is not there to praise Cody. He is there to slay Cody. Jake called Cody Julius Caesar and talked about the Ides of March, which there is a theory on what Jake meant by that. We'll get to that in a few moments here. Jake revealed that he has a client and that the dark side will be coming to AEW. We got a Dark Order, a Dark Side, lots of dark stuff in AEW. We got a show called Dark. Maybe AEW overdoing it a little bit with the dark references, but it's all right. Jake was fantastic here. Jake showed everybody that the dude can still cut a hell of a promo. He talked about how it took him 20 years to get clean and sober, and now he is back in the thick of things. He's not going to be a nice boy and play right, and he's coming for Cody. Him and his client, they are going to take care of Cody Rhodes. And Cody even said, bring that one-trick pony, Arn Anderson, with him. Jake finished his promo by saying that what a snake wants, a snake gets, and he is not there to take the whole pie. He just wants Cody's share. Great stuff here from Jake. He still has it. And what does this all mean? Who is this client? Who is this mystery guy that Jake is representing? A lot of people think it's Luke Harper, aka Brody Lee. One fan on Twitter pointed out that the line about Caesar and the Ides of March is a reference to March 15th, the Ides of March. The next episode of Dynamite after that Ides of March, which is on a Sunday, is Wednesday. I believe it's the 18th of March. That episode of Dynamite after the Ides of March is in Rochester, New York. Who is from Rochester, New York? Brody Lee, aka Luke Harper. So, has the code been cracked? Will we see the debut of Brody Lee as the client of Jake the Snake Roberts? Will that happen on March 18th in Rochester, New York, which was already rumored to be Brody Lee's debut since it's his hometown. But now it seems like we got a pretty clear tease for that with Jake's promo. Tony H with a $2 super chat says, Matt Hardy and Jake Roberts, ? Imagine the video packages. Yeah, that would be something else. No Matt Hardy on this show, by the way, but he could show up at any time. Anything's possible, and they're going to keep you waiting, like I said. The Exalted One is still coming, and maybe it's not going to be Matt Hardy. You never know. AEW might pull off a big swerve, and it's not Hardy. We'll just have to wait and see. And by the way, to answer OG Crushes, Matt Hardy does not have a no-compete because his contract actually expired. If you're let go by WWE, you're released early from your contract, there's that 90-day no-compete. But since Hardy's contract actually 100% expired, he is free to do whatever he wants. He could have showed up on Dynamite tonight if he wanted to. Tonight, whatever. Moving on here, we had Kenny Omega and Nick Jackson announced as not being there due to injuries suffered at the pay-per-view. And then we had Pac versus Chuck Taylor. We had Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta on the outside. We got a best friend hug during the match, but it was not enough. Pac picked up the victory with his submission. And then after the match, Trent got in Pac's face, and then Orange Cassidy also got in Pac's face. Crowd went crazy for this, of course. And then all of a sudden, the Lucha Brothers show up. They do this double super kick to Orange Cassidy. They attack Trent Beretta. And then Pac got on the mic and announced, he said, "Listen up, scumbags. We got a new faction here." He called the name of the faction the Death Triangle and said that they're going to be taking over the place. They took out Orange Cassidy once again, beat the crap out of him. I like the name of the faction. I saw some criticism. Some people think too many factions, and at least they dropped the Nightmare Collective. But yeah, another dark style group. We had Dark Order, Nightmare Collective, Death Triangle. But I do like this pairing. I like Pac and the Lucha Brothers together. So I think that that's pretty cool. I still think AEW should do a trios championship. WWE has never done it. And AEW, they could use one more championship. I say do a trios title, since it's something we haven't really seen in the United States. And since you got all these three-person groups, why not? I say bring in the trios titles, but that's just my opinion on it. OG Crusher says, how about calling them the Pac-Men? I like that one. That's pretty funny, although I think it would be hard to take them seriously with a name like that. Just my take on it. And there was no Lance Archer on this show. I know AEW hyped up his debut for this week, or at least some kind of announcement about him, but unless I missed something, there was no reference to him on this show. So kind of weird. That's strange for AEW. Usually they've delivered on everything that they've advertised up to this point. We had a Shawn Spears pre-show promo in the arena before the show. He's still looking for a tag team partner. Maybe Matt Hardy will be his tag team partner. Who knows at this point? Next up, we had Jake Hager going up against QT Marshall. Santana and Ortiz were out there with Hager. Dustin Rhodes and Brandy were out there with QT. Hager picked up the win pretty easily with the standing arm triangle. After the match, all hell broke loose. Dustin Rhodes came in to break up the submission. He got attacked by the Inner Circle. Cody Rhodes made the save, and then Ortiz hit Cody Rhodes with a steel chair, and that led to the Inner Circle regaining the upper hand. Matt Jackson, the one young buck who was able to travel to this show, came out there to even the odds. However, he got overwhelmed. And then finally, Adam Page came down. He had a drink with him. He put the drink aside, and then he attacked the Inner Circle. Announcers were acting like they were not sure if Page was going to help the good guys. Page hit a pretty cool buckshot lariat to Hager after almost being thrown over the top, and he ran off the bad guys. However, he flipped off Matt Jackson before taking his leave. Keith Johnson with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Keith. He says, too many factions, Aaron. Well, I know there are a lot of opinions about it, and keep in mind, during the Attitude Era, we did have a lot of factions. It seemed like every other segment on the show had a faction, so it's not like we haven't seen it before in wrestling, but yeah, I think that this should probably be it. No more factions after this. You got the Dark Order, you got the Inner Circle, you got the Elite, if you want to count them, and now you got the Death Triangle, so it is becoming a bit much. Still not a whole lot with the women's division on this show, by the way. We did have a recap of Chris Statlander versus Nyla Rose and Statlander's unsuccessful attempt to become the women's champion. We did have that brief match with Big Swole, but other than that, not much with the women on this show. We had an MJF pre-taped promo, which I thought was really strong. He said he went from protege to prodigy. He called out Jon Moxley. He vowed to become the AEW World Champion. He said he's going to go through everyone that gets in his way. Then he revealed a t-shirt that read, I pinned Cody. And he admitted, yeah, this t-shirt is distracting, just like neck tattoos. And I was like, ooh, total ownage there. Love it. MJF is great. Love his act, and AEW is doing a great job. He is the closest thing they have at this point to their own major homegrown star. You know, they do have Luchasaurus, who I've been a big supporter of, but they haven't really done much with Luchasaurus. MJF is the one guy they've really invested a lot in up to this point, and hopefully he makes it big in AEW and can become their first real bona fide homegrown superstar. Moving on here, we had the main event of the evening, which was supposed to be Moxley and Darby Allin against Jericho and Sammy Guevara. However, Moxley got jumped by three guys wearing masks. These three guys took Moxley into the concession stand area. They unmasked, and it was the Inner Circle. Why they were wearing masks, I have no idea. But they beat the crap out of Moxley. The ringside physician was there. And Darby Allin, for some reason, did not run to the concession area to help out Moxley. He let Moxley get beat up in that area for whatever reason. But then Darby decided, you know what? I'll fight Jericho and Sammy 2-on-1 in a handicap match. During the match, we had a crowd chant, which was censored by TNT, I would presume. Not sure what that chant was. Probably some kind of profanity. We had Darby Allin attempting to make a tag, but no Moxley, so hell, Darby tagged himself in. He almost won this match by himself. He hit a destroyer for a near fall. He hit the coffin drop on Guevara, but then Jericho made the save at the last second. Jericho went to the outside. Darby went for the suicide dive, but then Jericho countered it with the Judas effect. Then Sammy Guevara got the pinfall victory over Darby Allin, who had been hit with the Judas effect. As it looked like the show was going to go off the air without Moxley, Moxley did make his return. He had the steel chair, and he hit the paradigm shift to Sammy Guevara, but then Jake Hager, jumped him. The whole group beat him down backstage, and then to add insult to injury, they took a page out of the Shield's playbook. The Shield triple power bomb off the stage. Moxley went off the stage, through a table, and then all the members of the Inner Circle flipped off Jon Moxley. And because Moxley did not end the show on his feet, Jericho does not have to take 60 days off. Nice swerve there with all the news about Fozzy having a tour next month. Good swerve here by AEW. I like it a lot. Now, according to Tony H, they said, F you, Sammy. That was the chant that got censored, so there you go. It was pretty annoying, like just silence for every F-bomb for like 15 seconds. It got a little annoying. Everyone's happy in the chat room that I acknowledged the chant. Thank you guys for providing that information. I appreciate it. So, letter grade for AEW before we talk about NXT. Another really good show from AEW. Love the Jake Roberts stuff. Love the angle with Jon Moxley and Jericho. All in all, very entertaining show. Going to give it an A- this week. Definitely worth checking out, especially the Jake and Cody segment and all the stuff with Moxley and Jericho. Daniel gives AEW an A. Jeremy Dorset with an A-. Christopher Mace with an A-. Tony H with a B+. CC Drink with a B. Mike B with a B+. And Curtis Butler with an A-. Grant Midnight Black Peoples with a B. Pretty solid letter grades here. Tic Tat Tat with a B+ for AEW. And Anthony with an A+. All right. Let's move on to NXT. No Beth Phoenix on this show. She was selling the injury from Raw, the RKO. We had our first of 2 cage matches. Dakota Kai versus Tegan Nox. Raquel Gonzalez was out there with Dakota Kai. Tegan did a couple big moves. She choke slammed Dakota Kai from the top rope using the cage to hold on to, slamming her off there to the mat. And then later, Tegan did a crossbody block off the top of the steel cage. But then we had Gonzalez getting involved in the match, interfering, trying to close the cage door as Nox was attempting to escape. Then Gonzalez tried to get into the ring, so Nox decided to climb up the steel cage, and then Gonzalez responded by trying to pull Kai out through the door, and just as Nox was about to come down the cage, she was climbing out, Gonzalez pinned her, using the cage door, pinned her to the cage, and Kai finally got to the floor to pick up the victory. I think it's it's a little weak to have interference in these cage matches since the whole concept of a cage match is no interference. I mean, that's the idea at least. But I will say it was a very creative finish. I cannot remember the last time somebody was pinned to the cage with the cage door to lead to the other person winning. So I will say, creativity-wise, good finish and good match overall. Kid Terminated by Google says interference in cage matches are okay. Well, I'm just an old fart. Back in my day, you didn't have all this interference in cage matches, but now it's pretty much commonplace. We had a Finn Balor video package talking about the Imperium attack, so looks like we're getting a further setup for Balor versus Walter at TakeOver Tampa. We had a Rhea Ripley segment, a video package. She was at the Raymond James Stadium, I believe that's what it's called, in Tampa. She was there in the stadium to discuss the upcoming match with Charlotte. She talked about how when she first came into NXT, people thought she was a mini Charlotte. I'm not sure I ever thought of her that way. I'm curious to know if anybody in the chat room saw her as a mini Charlotte. I certainly did not, although maybe when she first came in before she went total hot topic with her look. But I don't remember that far back, but I never thought of her as Charlotte, that's for sure. Christopher Mace says nobody thought of her that way. And Grant says, hell no. Tic Tat Tat says Lacey Evans looks more like mini Charlotte. Nelson says, is the Demon Balor gimmick dead? Never say never, right? I'm sure there's always an opportunity to bring it back, and he'll bring it back when he feels the time is right. We had Shotzi Blackheart up against Chelsea Green. Blackheart came out with her tank. We had Robert Stone come out there to introduce Chelsea Green as the face of the women's division. Pretty short match here. Chelsea picked up the victory to build up her momentum. Next up, we had Keith Lee coming out for a promo. He talked about his potential challengers, Dominik Dijakovic, Damian Priest, but then Cameron Grimes came out and said that Keith should be talking about him. He ripped into Keith Lee for a bit, and then Keith shoved him out of the ring and said if Grimes wants an opportunity, he will give him an equal opportunity ass kicking on next week's NXT. And it was confirmed next week for the North American title, Keith Lee will defend against Cameron, don't call him Rick, Grimes. Next up, we had the Undisputed Era versus Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. Undisputed Era picked up the victory here. And then after the match, they cut a promo talking about how they love to win, but something feels different. They don't have the NXT Tag Team titles. The Broserweights came out. They started a promo, but then they got jumped by the grizzled young veterans. The veterans said they don't care about the rematch clause. They're not going to wait for William Regal to give them an opportunity. They said it's out with the old and it's in with the grizzled young veterans. Ken Terminated by Google with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Ken. He says, remember when Austin interfered doing Kurt Angle's historic cage match with Chris, or when Jillian Hall helped JBL win his cage match versus Chris? I remember the Austin one. I do not remember the Jillian Hall one, which is, I guess, a shame on me because JBL is our latest inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame. Sure, I should be up to speed with all the JBL classic moments in history. But unfortunately, I'm not because, well, I was never all that big of a JBL fan, quite frankly. JBL versus John Cena WrestleMania. One of the most boring title matches I've ever watched live, gotta say. Although they did step it up at that I Quit match they did what was it, Judgment Day, I think? Whatever that pay-per-view was after WrestleMania, they had that match. That one was really good. Way better than the WrestleMania match. But yeah, I thought JBL's matches were really boring for the most part. The Undertaker matches, The Eddie stuff was good, but I give that credit to Eddie. Eddie busting himself open and just bleeding gushers. That's going to be entertaining regardless of who the other guy is in the ring. Moving on here, we had Isaiah Swerve Scott versus Austin Theory. Really good match here, arguably the best match of the show. I do like Austin Theory's music, and he's got a great look. So looks like, I was going to say AEW, NXT starting to invest something in him. Austin, of course, very arrogant, calling himself the greatest of all time at the ripe old age. I think they said he's like 23 or 24. Pretty back and forth match between these guys. And Austin got his arm hurt at some point, and then he somehow managed to hit his diamond cutter-like finisher to pick up the victory. Good stuff here with these guys. Jeremy says it was Judgment Day 2005 I Quit match. Thank you for confirming that for me. And People's Wrestling Channel says, have you ever been to WrestleMania? I have been to 2 of them. 21 in Los Angeles and 31 in the Bay Area, as WWE would like to say. San Jose, Santa Clara, whatever you want to call it. Next up, we had a Johnny Gargano pre-taped interview at the Performance Center with Mauro Ranallo. And Ranallo wanted to know, why, Johnny, why? Johnny said he did what he had to do. Mauro kept pressing him. And then Gargano said that Mauro has no idea what the situation is. Mauro again asked why, and Johnny said, you know why, Mauro. And then he got in Mauro's face and talked about how Mauro never gave him a call to ask about how things are going. Instead, Mauro goes on the pay-per-view and calls him Johnny Turncoat. Johnny said Mauro knows nothing about him and told Mauro to apologize for lying to the people, calling him a turncoat and all that. Mauro did not like being threatened, so he took off. And then Gargano said next week there's going to be a confrontation with Tommaso Ciampa, and they're going to do things Johnny's way. Next week's show, I believe, is going to be at the Performance Center, so a little change of pace from the norm. Should be an interesting show next week. How's it going, Nathan Washington? Going good here. We had our main event, which was Velveteen Dream versus Roderick Strong, our second cage match of the evening. Undisputed Era came down. Another cage match, another match with interference. However, Dream did not care about winning this match. As soon as the Undisputed Era came down and they were trying to get into the cage, it's no DQ, so technically they can get away with it. Why William Regal doesn't say they're banned from ringside, I don't know. You should know by now. We've seen enough cage matches where people are interfering constantly. You would think the authority figures would say, hey, nobody's interfering in this, but whatever. I mean, theoretically, they should do that for every match, but, you know, it's sports entertainment, so got to have your outside interference. Velveteen Dream took Strong and pushed him out of the cage, basically sacrificing the match because he had a plan. He locked the steel cage with the chain, and he was locked inside with the NXT World Champion Adam Cole. and the other members of Undisputed Era tried to get into the ring. Dream fought them off, and then he hit the Dream Valley driver onto the steel chair, and then he took the NXT title, climbed up the steel cage, and held up the title, and that was the end of NXT for this week. Interesting stuff here, and it looks like we're going to have Dream challenging for the title against Adam Cole. Will it finally be Velveteen Dream's time? That remains to be seen. You guys that watched NXT and you were focused on it, give me your letter grade. As you guys know, I tend to focus on AEW, so I don't do the letter grade for NXT. But let me know what you thought of NXT this week with a letter grade. Grant Peoples with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Grant. He says, think it'll be cool if Jeff Hardy comes to NXT? That would be interesting. And I'm a little surprised WWE hasn't brought a few more people into NXT to compete with AEW. But I guess Triple H wants to keep his baby intact and not do too many crazy things and show signs of desperation and focus on his young talents. Even though apparently NXT is an equal brand with Raw and SmackDown. So why not bring in some of the big stars? But, they got to do what they got to do to keep NXT strong and not ruin the formula by bringing in all these outsiders. They did it for Survivor Series, and, they brought in Charlotte, and Charlotte did not move ratings at all. So maybe they're just accepting the fact that unless they bring in all the top tier guys every week, NXT is going to do what it's going to do against AEW. Ken Terminated by Google with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that, Ken. He says, I am not a JBL fan either, but a tiny part of me is happy because the APA are one of my favorite tandems of the Attitude Era. Aren't you a mark for the APA? I did like the APA, and that was probably the highlight of Bradshaw's career for me. See, okay, Mike B just sent in a $10 super chat. Thank you, Mike B. I'm going to get to that here in a minute and also discuss Ken's comment. Let me see what you guys thought about NXT. Grant Peoples gave it a C+. Wow. Glenn Hunt said NXT was a good show tonight. Daniel gives NXT a B. Curtis Butler with a B+. Tic Tat Tat with a B+. And Chris D with a B. People's Wrestling Channel with a B. And Christopher Mace with an A-. The thing about JBL, he was a good hand for WWE. He was very loyal, but never the most charismatic guy. He was just there in the mid-card. Brock Lesnar left the company in 2004. There was a big void. SmackDown needed a top heel. So the guy that was loyal to the company all those years, right place, right time, got his shot. A little bit of $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, a little bit of his own southern rich oil tycoon type character. JBL cut a good promo, I'll admit, but to me, not the most flashiest guy in the ring. Just my take on him. Mike B with a $10 super chat says, when he's done in AEW, do you think Chris Jericho will have one last run in WWE, the Go in the Hall of Fame? SmackDown in Buffalo on Friday night, was thinking about going but decided not to. Hope it's at least a good show. I think Jericho will be in the WWE Hall of Fame one day. It's inevitable. Who knows? He might even come back and do one more match. It's Jericho. He comes and goes. Vince will forgive him for AEW, just like he forgave Hogan for going to WCW and all that stuff. Maybe he's mad at Jericho now. Who knows? Who knows what Vince is thinking? But yeah, Jericho will be back one day. Hall of Fame at least, and I would bet money that he's going to do another match. And yeah, I hope SmackDown's a good show. I hope they have a solid follow-up to the Bray Wyatt and John Cena match announcement. And Nelson Moreno with a $5 super chat says, random question. If the NXT roster merges with AEW, will that be enough to outperform Raw and SmackDown? Well, they're two different companies, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that they did merge. I still don't think that that would be enough because Raw and SmackDown, they appeal to the casual fans. AEW and NXT, they appeal to more of a niche audience. But if you had all those stars combined, I would think you'd probably have a pretty solid viewership, 1.4, 1.5 million every week. But I still don't think that they would be doing Raw and SmackDown numbers if you combined those two rosters into one show. I still don't think they would be able to compete with Raw and SmackDown, to answer your question. Ken terminated by Google. Thank you, Ken. Very supportive here with a $10 super chat. Very generous of you, Ken. He says, question for Mike B and Aaron Rift. Do you see Jericho returning to WWE and going to the Hall of Fame right away, circa Kurt Angle? By the way, Mike B is my favorite rival. Keep doing you, Mike. Whenever Jericho does come back, he will go into the Hall of Fame. I think that it would be very similar to Angle, where he would go into the Hall of Fame and possibly do one more match, or maybe they'll change it up. I mean, it just depends on when Jericho does come back. If he comes back next year, I could see him wrestling first and then Hall of Fame. If he comes back in 5 years, maybe it'll be Hall of Fame first and then one more match or something like that. And then we got a $2 super chat from TR Sega. It says, what is your take on MJF flipping the bird to a 7-year-old kid? I have mixed feelings about it. I like MJF staying in character. I think that it is important for AEW as a business to be as kid-friendly as possible. I know they're pushing the envelope and stuff, but you want kids to be able to come to the shows too, and you want to build an audience, for the long haul. You want kids to watch, grow up, and have kids of their own and have those kids become fans. That's thinking the big picture. So I think that the parents bringing their kids to an AEW event, AEW is an edgier product than WWE. So the parents do have a responsibility to tell their kids, hey, these guys are wrestlers and they use profanity and they flip people off, and this is what you're going to see at this show. And it's all make-believe, it's a show. So if the father was upset about this, which apparently he was, I mean, it is MJF, and MJF is a guy who likes to stay in character. I mean, he's been doing this for months now. He's insulting people on Twitter all the time. So the parent probably should have known better, but at the same time, I mean, if MJF's doing these autograph signings, maybe he should not be doing the middle fingers. Maybe you should not have MJF doing the autograph signings in the first place if he's going to be really serious about his role and staying in character. So definitely got some mixed feelings on that one, but I do like what MJF is doing. Grant Peoples with a $3 super chat says, what is your favorite R-Truth moment? Probably him climbing up the ladder at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, but just all the 24/7 title stuff, the things with Carmella, like him and Carmella had great chemistry together. The dance breaks were fun. R-Truth's done a lot of great stuff over the years, and Little Jimmy, the stuff with John Cena was really good. I don't really have any one specific favorite R-Truth moment. Anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this live stream. Thank you all very much for watching and supporting the website and channel, NoDQ.com. Stay tuned for the very latest wrestling news and rumors. And by the way, shout out to Ken, I believe it was Ken, who sent in a super chat last night that I missed as we were going off the air. I do appreciate that, and sorry if I miss him when we go off the air here. If you like the video, again, like it, share it, tell a friend, subscribe, all that stuff, whatever you can do to help. I really do appreciate it. Tomorrow night, we'll be back with another live stream My poor throat. I'm actually feeling a little better tonight, getting there, but all the live streaming isn't really speeding up the recovery process. We got another live stream tomorrow night. We got Elimination Chamber predictions, and then Friday night I got SmackDown, and then I'll have Saturday off, which will be nice. Sunday, Elimination Chamber, live stream, and then we're back at it again for the new week. Thank you guys as always for watching, and I will see you all next time. Wait, Ken did it again. I almost clicked off here. He sent another $5 super chat, so I got to acknowledge it before we go here. Everybody probably signed off already, so this is No DQ After Dark. He says, thank you for bringing up last night's super chat. By the way, if you ask me, R-Truth's best moments are the heel promos that he cut in TNA. He did some good stuff in TNA, and I think that's when he really started to get his footing in. You know, he started as K-Quick in WWE. That really did not work out. He went to TNA and kind of got into the zone with his character and proved that he could be more than just that one-dimensional sidekick of Road Dogg. So I agree, those promos were pretty good. Something a lot of people don't really remember because TNA has kind of fallen off the grid as far as importance goes. But yeah, he had some really good moments in 3 Live Crew and all that stuff. That was entertaining as well. All right, guys, I'm out. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.